Changes Are Coming, Real IDs. Read to you by Carol Brigham. The U.S. Constitution gives the federal government some powers. The federal government can print money, declare war, create an army, and make treaties. State governments have other powers. One state power is to give out driver's licenses and photo identification. This is why a person has a Pennsylvania driver's license or a Colorado photo ID and not a United States driver's license or photo ID. The rules for licenses or photo IDs are different in each state. The application process and documents a person must show are different too. Even with these differences, people can use these photo IDs in any U.S. state. They can use them to show who they are, their age, and where they live. A person with a driver's license can legally drive in all 50 states. Now, people must show photo IDs when they go through airport security. They must also show an ID going into a federal building or onto a military base. But the rules are changing. Soon, they will not be able to use their state ID to do these things. After May 7, 2025, people will need a passport, government document, or real ID. What is a real ID? A real ID is a photo ID. It is still given by each state. However, people who want a real ID must provide more documents. They must show their full legal name, date of birth, and social security number. They must prove that they are legal residents of the U.S. They must also show 2 documents that prove their address. State officials verify that this information is true. Some states may also ask for other documents. It is important to check with the Department of Motor Vehicles, DMV, or the Secretary of State's office in your state. These offices can tell you the requirements in your state. A real ID has a special mark. This mark proves that the ID is an official real ID. The mark is either a star or a star inside a circle. In California, it is a bear with a star in it. The mark is printed somewhere on the top part of the ID. Change takes time. On September 11, 2001, terrorists used airplanes to attack the United States. They flew 2 airplanes into the World Trade Center in New York City. They flew 1 airplane into the Pentagon near Washington, D.C. Passengers on a 4th plane made it crash in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, to stop the hijackers. After September 11, the U.S. government wanted to know how the attacks happened. The government formed a group to study the attacks. In 2004, the group said that there should be federal rules for ID documents. In 2005, representatives and senators talked about ID safety. They voted on laws to make federal rules for ID documents. In May 2005, President George W. Bush signed the new law. That law said the new rules would start on May 11, 2008. State officials were not happy. They would need to change how they gave out IDs. The process would take more time and money. Some states thought these new rules took away their power. Some states said the new rules took away people's privacy. The federal government said this wasn't true. States would still give out licenses and IDs. They could have 2 kinds of IDs. The real IDs would use the new government rules. They would have the real ID marks. The state IDs would use the state's rules. They would have a message saying that the ID can't be used as a federal ID. People could choose if they wanted a state ID or a real ID. The federal government also moved the date for when states had to start giving out real IDs. Since then, the federal government has moved that date many times. First, the date changed because states weren't ready. Then it changed because of the COVID-19 pandemic. On December 5, 2022, the federal government moved the date to May 7, 2025, 1 year from now. The government says the states are ready. People can get real IDs in all 50 states and all U.S. territories now. Who needs a real ID? Not everyone will need a real ID right now. People who do not go into federal buildings and do not plan to fly in the U.S. do not need a real ID now. People who have a U.S. passport do not need a real ID. People who have another federal ID document, like a military ID or a permanent resident card, do not need a real ID now. But these rules could change in the future. People who do not have a U.S. passport or federal ID may need to get a real ID. They will need it to go in federal buildings, in nuclear power plants, and on military bases. They will also need a real ID to go through airport security. The type of IDs airport security accepts is listed at www.tsa.gov/travel/security-screening-identification. Getting a real ID. The process for getting a real ID is different in every state. Some states want people to make an appointment at the DMV. Some states have walk-in hours at the DMV. Some states allow people to send in their documents online. Some states only want to see the documents in person. Real IDs are not free. There are fees for getting licenses, IDs, and real IDs. Each state also has different fees. If you want to get a driver's license, photo ID, or real ID in your state, check with the DMV near you for the rules in your state. For more information about the Real ID, visit www.dhs.gov/real-ID-real-ID-facts. For more information about Easy English News, and to subscribe to our digital version or our paper copies, visit our website, easyenglishnews.com.